Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy Zhang, one of your hosts today.
Hello, everyone, and I'm Pania Newell, the other host.
Welcome back to our show. Today, we'll be talking about people who keep our departments and school alive. I mean, our amazing staff.
That's right, the one that they rarely get a spotlight, but literally make everything possible. Lucy, can you even imagine starting with your own department without a staff? I don't even want to think a day without them. Let's start by talking about the role of a staff. Can you mention some of them, Lucy?
Yeah, I think the ones that we encounter on a daily basis, almost daily basis, are administrative staff, like people arranging seminars who help the students with their classes or scheduling and who help us put in our final exam requests and like arranging all the classrooms and people who order materials for us and all of those. Certainly, there are many, many things from the students' perspectives and also from faculty perspectives.
Before talking about the details of the staff, can you put it into some context, like the size of the academic staff in the US?
Yeah, so there is actually a recent article from Inside Higher Ed. There are about 3.5 million people employed at the post-secondary institutions. Of course, that includes community colleges, four-year colleges, and the ones offer with or without graduate degrees. Of the 3.5 million people total, about 1.5 million are faculty and 2 million are staff. You can see that it's not even an even divide, so we do have more staff than faculty.
Wow, I didn't know this high number of the staff and also the ratio. This would be good if we can break it down further more and then see where these high numbers coming from and what their responsibilities are. If you can start by just mentioning some of them.
Yeah, among the 2 million staff, the largest categories by employment numbers are office administrative support. So that's 370,000 people. And the students and campus services, I guess that includes recruiting and student services like mental health or tutoring services, and in general, student success, dorms, that's 220,000. And then goes to management. That would include financial and payrolls and management. That's 270,000. And then finally, the final category is librarians and instructional support staff. So that would include like IT support, librarians. That's 215,000. So they're relatively even among the four major categories, but the office administrative support certainly is the largest of all.
I had no idea about these numbering and also the distributions. I'm glad somebody did a research on it. I'm a little bit more educated about them. So you mentioned that there are these different categories. It would be helpful for our audience to discuss each of them and their roles, because you pointed out that 2 million are staff and 1.5 million or so faculty. We need to understand why we have this many people and how we can interact with them better. Starting with the academic support staff, can you just tell us a little bit about their roles and what you think their responsibilities are?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we sometimes underestimate how much of the student experience is really shaped by academic support staff. So academic support staff are, in my point of view, are student facing. So these are the people who directly or indirectly starting from recruiting all the way to support. So I believe these are all part of that support staff. From the very initial interactions the students have all the way until they graduate. For example, graduation clearance, that's a big thing. Without these staff being there to look over all their transcript, make sure they have all the credits in order to graduate, we're not going to hold it together. Students really interact more with the staff than with faculty in that point of view. So those touch points really quietly define whether students feel supported or they feel lost.
Yeah. This is a really good point. About 2 weeks ago, we had a graduate visitation week, and our amazing staff took 58 people skiing. Imagine managing this large number of people. I wouldn't be able to handle them. I'll mention the administrative systems. First, when any faculty start, they need to make sure their computers is set up, the printers, and we heavily rely on the IT support. And those that are experimentalists, they also need support from the lab operators and technicians that they can help to set up the lab. Setting up a computer is not an easy task, especially when you are setting it up for large number of students, that they all should be in the specific network and then be connected to the underlying systems within the university, and then also making sure everything is safe. And we all have different software that we use. So with the help of the IT, I managed to at least pass some of the burdens of me figuring them out on them, and they are really good. So without their support, I don't think that I would have been able to do my work properly.
I like to mention about the procurement, travel. Those are very much related to our daily routines as well, because procurement involves in payment, vendors. If you were to buy a lab equipment or a third-party contractor to do part of our project, that's all related to the procurement office. I have seen campuses that really get stuck with procurement backlogs. It could be related to a more strict compliance or how they communicate. Sometimes those backlogs can really generate hurdles for faculty or their lab growth, especially for faculty who just started out. Because at the beginning, if they want to get their lab ready, they need to get equipment and lab set up to get their contractors to clean out the space, whatever it is. Those that have to go through that central channel where things can get started. So if that workflow got broken down for whatever reason, it could be due to the system, it could due to the lack of communication. All of those can cause very damaging effects.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've observed that the staff sometimes find other opportunities, or there is a change in the staffing, and that contributes to some of these delays, and the impact is sometimes very significant on the receiver. I like that you said it could be due some communications, but any communication that it gets lost along the way, it can be really damaging for either side. And you pointed out travel. Typically during summertime, almost all faculty and students are traveling, so it's a lot of paperwork for the reimbursement. And last summer we were facing difficulties, and some of the students' request for the reimbursement was delayed. For faculty, they can wait, but for a student, it could be a huge burden when there are these delays. And it's not the end of the world, but in some cases I had some postdocs that they went to other institutions for the continuations of their career, and we were still working on their reimbursement. It happens. It's not just unique for my department, and that was like a special case that happened. It doesn't happen like every summer, but it highlights the communications between faculty and staff that are responsible for travel and procurement.
Yeah, I think at the beginning we talked about systems. So I know that a lot of these type of workflow has been contracted to the third party. So for travel reimbursements type of thing, a lot of institutions use Concur or similar type of systems. And then for, ticketing or procurement, there's like a ticketing system that's also very much like third party. In general, I like mature software that can help with that process, but sometimes I feel like they can also delay the process. Like ticketing system, for example. I feel like when I fill out the form, it just go into a black hole. I don't know who's gonna get it. And when it comes back in a ticket form, I'm like, oh, I know that I can just reply and someone will continue to monitor it, but it could be a totally different person. I feel like there's some type of disconnect in there. I am not working in those offices. That's probably the best way that it can get done. But I felt like sometimes the systems can cause that kind of delay or miscommunication. At least from the user point of view, I feel the personal interactions are just completely gone in that process. And then oftentimes I feel lost because did they get it? Am I waiting for this person's response or do I have to explain if it's coming from a next person? I just don't know. And certainly there's pros and cons in using these sort of defined third-party systems.
I 100% agree. Well, one of the contributing factors for us for travel issues during the summer, it was first huge number, change in the staff and so many other things, but also utilizing the Concur system. And they were updating it. And I don't know if you figured it out. I never figured it out when I was in my previous job because they keep changing the version. So now we have these people that they are getting all our papers work and they put it on the system, and for them they need to be trained and then they have to learn about all these details, and it's overwhelming because it's not just one person sitting and then doing travel the whole time. So I'm with you. I like the easier, I don't know, GUI software or systems, but I guess they make it complicated for some reason. Whatever that reason is, it's out of my hand. But the ticketing system, for example, for our CHPC system, the Center for High Performance Computing, their ticketing system is amazing. It's wonderful. It takes no more than 30 minutes. They get back to us. But in my other places, every time you reply, it's a random person. It's like, oh, let me see what happened in the ticket. I need to study 20 more other conversation that you had. But there are definitely communications could be lost for whatever reason, complexity of the system or somebody doing something that they were not supposed to do.
I've heard a case where a faculty needed the procurement to pay their publication, right? I think science or nature or something. And those things needs to happen fast because it's very sensitive and it needs to be paid right away. Otherwise, they don't publish it. They can embargo there for a month if you don't pay them. The procurement said, oh no, there is a 30-day hold. In other words, unless it's absolute deadline, we can wait until then. So they don't understand the urgency of this publication. So they just hold it, no response. And then the faculty who's like, the paper needs to get out. So there's just back and forth, back and forth. There's obviously a lack of communication and everybody's frustrated, especially the faculty who want the results out to be published as soon as possible, of course. It takes so long to get accepted. You want it to be out. So that's like where system got broken down. Whose fault is it? I have no idea. But the staff there doesn't seem to understand the urgency. Somehow the communication between policy practice and needs, it's just broken apart. And it's very frustrating.
That's why I don't publish in Nature and Science.
Great
That's the
excuse.
reason.
Yeah.
That's the reason. Now the whole world knows.
So maybe next thing that we can talk about is the grants administration and research office. So when we talk about research productivity, we usually talk about faculty idea, paper grants, and all that. But all of these grants needs a grant submission process. And we usually go through the research office. And for my institution, for example, our grants administration and research office are separate. So it's very complex. to work with both offices because they're not really in one unit.
Yeah, for faculty that they do research, it's really important to make sure that their grant is handled properly, their submissions is handled properly, and most of the time these people have some deadlines, like if you have to give them the entire proposals a week or 2 weeks in advance, so they have time to review it. And sometimes it doesn't matter if it's NSF career or a multi-million-dollar NIH grant. If you don't submit it, they say that's our policy. You didn't submit it in advance for us to review, which makes sense because I always need extra pair of eyes to read the call carefully to make sure that I'm addressing them all. And those are the people that they've seen a lot of these calls and they know what to look for. So I understand they have deadline, and I feel that it's my job to put it in my schedule to deliver it on time and then expect them to submit it by the deadline. But I think that faculty that do research, they interact a lot with these people for either submissions or managing their grant. Another category, it's administrative assistants. I rely a lot on them for almost everything in my department. I'm fortunate that they've been like a cornerstone for our department. One of the things that I interact a lot with them is, for example, when you have a visiting scholar and they need to do the paperwork for them to get the J1 visa. When you even want to have an adjunct faculty, they need to prepare the ballot for the departments to vote on. There are a lot of things that they've been helping in terms of the both research and also coordinating some of the basic things that we do. For example, student defense, coordinating the meetings, sending out the notifications, booking the conference room, providing the AV system if it's not in the room, or if it's even changing the classroom if it's not suitable. Those are some of the things that I can think of.
And in our case, our departmental administrative staff also help putting the tenure packages or promotion packages together. And that's really critical. I remember when I went up for tenure promotion, we had a staff member who since then had retired, and she was putting stuff together. She was able to at least give me a very quick assessment, even though she's not in a technical field. She's done so many of these. She could say, it looks strong. It looks fine. Don't worry about it. And I remember at that time I was scared because I was pregnant. I wasn't even there on campus when I put in my tenure package. And I said, oh, should I even do it? Should I just wait until I physically come back to campus to do this? And then she's, Lucy, no. You go for it. You can't find a better time to do it. So they have such a broad view. They're so experienced with so many cases and so many different scenarios. They play such a critical role in that sense because they're the people who will look over making sure all the sentences are complete, making sure your descriptions and all the contents complete. So I think these people are really critically important and essential.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I totally forgot about the 10-year packet. And then it doesn't end with that. Every faculty meeting that we have that they are discussing this, they are the ones that they are there and taking notes.
And reaching out to the letter writers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have a department.
When the departments, they get bigger and bigger, you can imagine the stress that's on them. And this is just like one aspect. Like it's not like one person handling all of this, but the amount of the knowledge that they have and the experience, it's something that nobody can put any price into it. It's like they know so much about the process through their experience.
We sometimes rely on staff on institutional knowledge that nobody else would know. If some staff stay much longer than faculty or administrators, they carry the knowledge about policies or past decisions that have been made.
And then another important thing is the payroll. They put all the students on the payroll and also faculty. When we have multiple budgets, they are the one that they help us how we want our summer salary to be distributed. And so many times I requested a meeting to sit with them, and to me, they are doing magic. They just punch numbers and they say, okay, this is the number. If you stay on this project, you would spend this much. I'm sure you understand them because you understand numbers really well. I personally owe them big time, and without them, also a student won't get paid because they are the one that they are making it happen.
I agree. Some of the administrative assistants who sometimes are called executive assistants, they are usually the assistant for leaderships, like assistant for the dean, for the provost, for the presidents. So the executive assistants are the ones who are almost like gatekeeping role. They keep the leaders on schedule for their meetings to make sure they're present when they're supposed to and all that. They are also coordinators of some of these critical meetings. I have seen how something as simple as scheduling can actually shape institutional culture because they often are the bridge between faculty and leadership. In a typical like a hierarchical structure, in order to make an appointment for faculty to meet with, say, the president, which typically doesn't happen, but it could happen, you would need to reach out to the executive assistant in order to make that meeting. And if that doesn't happen due to the assistant not responding or just simply no communications, that can easily break down. Then at the end of the day, the relationship between faculty and the leader suffers because the relationship never got built due to the lack of communication. That could create a bottleneck in our system.
The universities have this hierarchical system, and we need to have very clear communications among all the members. It doesn't matter which level they are, and a great executive assistant can make things happen very quick and without any problem, and make the life of the faculty and then the president or the deans much easier. And if they are not doing their job, then there would be hiccups along the way. So, Lucy, I guess we address all these different categories. Can you think of some other points that we didn't discuss about the role of the staff?
I think one last category we didn't really touch is the maintenance and facilities people. These are the folks who help fix our broken ACs and heaters, or pipe got burst and there's flooding, whatever it is, right? So they're the people who help clean all these labs and collect all the trash and recycles. In my point of view, they're extremely important. They keep our labs safe and clean to be usable. We rely very much on these people.
Very true. It reminds me about 2 years ago, we had a big flooding, and it happened over the weekends, and some of the labs, they got flooded. The maintenance people and those staff had to come in, clean up all the labs, and then notify the PIs, and they are like on call 24/7. Unfortunately, I guess not that many people, they talk about them, but yeah, their role is very critical.
They don't really show up in reports or anything or show up in the ranking, but they really can make the quality of our lives in a positive way.
We talked about different categories of staff. Hopefully we didn't miss any group. If we did, apologies.
They're all important.
For all, oh yes, they are all important, and we just put them in the big category of staff. Speaking of faculty, Lucy, can you talk about a little bit about what makes a staff-faculty relationship successful?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is mutual respect at a professional level, at a personal level. Just treat each other with respect. We all have our own domain of expertise. We must recognize that we rely on each other. We have the same mission, so we must have that mutual respect. And that's first. I really believe that's the foundation of that relationship is built on respect. And then other things, communication, communication on the clear boundaries and roles and who does what. And I sometimes think that, especially in service departments, for example, or service offices, I think it's quite important for that office to lay out the staff who are available and exactly the distinctions of everybody's role, or at least give some examples of what they all do. So when I reach out, I want to go to the right person instead of getting routed multiple times to the right person. If that role can be clearly defined, I think it would be really helpful for both parties to save time and be efficient at it in that relationship building or responsibility distribution of work.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have, our department does a really good job that we have this in our faculty page. So we can check to see who's responsible for travel, who's responsible for whatever aspect that we need. But I do agree that mutual respect is very important. I also think that it's very important that faculty, they also realize that we are not the only ones with the deadline. They also have their own deadlines. For example, for us, March 1st was the deadline for the budget. And I'm glad that I'm not involved with that. But I can imagine how difficult it is to put the annual budget for the entire year. And then sometimes also, for example, we go for the ABET evaluations. They have a significant role that they need to play. So there are other jobs and responsibilities that they have, and sometimes I myself, I forget, and most of them, they are my good friends, and I just stop by and doing something for me, and then I realize that, oh shoot, maybe I shouldn't have done that because they are busy with some other things. Maybe I should have sent them email. They've never complained. They are super nice. Also, I think that knowing the responsibility, it helps us to, as you said, to save some time on both sides. One other final thing is that I think that if we look at the staff and also say that faculty and staff and the whole department, we are all working towards one mission and we are a team, I think that would make things really easy. In my mind, there is no hierarchical level among faculty and staff. They are both equally important and they help each other towards the mission of the department or college or university.
Agree. I think I remember hearing one staff complain about another staff from a totally different department, not academic department, but like a service department. And then she said, if we all just think we're doing this for the students and faculty, we'll be all good. So if we have the same mission, shared vision, then we'll be all set. And I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. And we often lose track of things because we're also busy with, we're so entrenched with our own stuff, and we often don't think about other people or other people's role or needs. And I think sometimes we just need to step back and then think about the bigger picture. All right. I think we covered a lot today about staff. We wanted to give a quick shout out to the real backbone of academia, who are our wonderful staff. And from administrative teams to lab support, they keep everything running, keep learning and research possible. We'll appreciate all the people behind the scenes who make it all happen. Thank you all for tuning in. And if you get a chance to see your wonderful staff, and take a moment to thank them. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Bye.